Welcome to episode 297 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. My special guest in this episode is Jonathan Bouaziz. He's the CEO and co-founder at Kardinal, and we're going to talk about route optimization. Not just any old route optimization, we're going to talk about basically this next generation route optimization. Look, I won't talk anymore. Let's get into it, because I'll let Jonathan explain everything. So coming up in just a moment, Jonathan Bouaziz, CEO and co-founder at Kardinal. Joining me on the line is Jonathan Bouaziz. He's the CEO and co-founder of Kardinal. Jonathan, we're going to talk about route optimization and all kinds of interesting stuff relating to that. Why don't we just start out with a little bit of perspective, I suppose. What, in your experience, is this traditional role or traditional use case, I suppose, of route optimization in the delivery sector?
Yes. So first, thank you for inviting me, Ian. The route optimization solution exists for more than 60 years, and it has always worked the same way. You know, you have to define a perimeter, send the data to a route optimizer, and once you do that, you optimize for 10, 15 minutes, and you got the results. And it always has been very theoretical in the way that you need to define the perimeter. And in today's world, you cannot fix the perimeter. When you have to provide deliveries for the next day, the parcels arrive at the very last moment. So you need to optimize continuously, and you need to be able to define the perimeter at the very last moment. And this is why it's not working, and route optimization is not working today.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this concept of volatility and sort of why this classic route optimization method, I suppose, doesn't really work anymore. Is it just about volatility? And you mentioned next day or same day delivery. How does what other factors are there in there that mean that this classic way approach to route optimization isn't working as well anymore?
I think that volatility is one part of the problem because before, when you had more than it was more B2B deliveries, so you were able to anticipate the volume, you were able to anticipate what's going to happen, and so you define sectors for each driver, and so it was easy to first have because route optimization is two ways. It's first to define who in which the parcel goes in which bay, in which depot, and second is to sequence the parcel inside for each driver, for each bay, and so you have those load balancing, and this is two steps actually. But the volatility and the explosion of B2C in the last few years made this anticipation and building the sectorization very complicated, because you cannot anticipate what will be the volumes for the next day or the day after. This is why you need to be agile, resilient in your supply chain organization, but it's a struggle to do that when you have a lot of B2C and volatility.
What about the role of delivery subcontractors in all of this? Because I imagine that many people or many companies that are listening to this podcast will say, okay, we've got part of our fleet is owned, they've got employees, part of it is subcontracted out. So how does that play into all of this?
Yeah, you're right to mention that. You have two parts. You have first, of course, the resources, the owned resources, and you need to maximize their productivity. It's one part. But the subcontractors is a struggle, because we know that we have a strong driver shortage today. And when you need to sell, I would say, to a subcontractor an area, they need to be profitable. And so you need to anticipate the volumes, you need to anticipate the number of stops. Usually they are paid per stop, per parcel. And so for doing that, you need to have their trucks always full. But the problem, we know that the Mondays are very low, the Tuesdays are very high. And so it's a struggle to define the right size of the fleet. And so this is why when you to negotiate with the subcontractors, I think that the next few years, the winners will be the one that will keep the best subcontractors, because when you have a subcontractors, you develop an expertise. You have drivers developing an expertise on an area. And so when you deliver in 20 seconds instead of 2 minutes, at the end of the day, it makes a huge difference. And so I think that this difference and make the subcontractors profitable will be one of the things that will impact those parcel carriers in the next few years.
I fully agree with that. I think that it's often been overlooked that subcontractors want to be profitable. Yeah. They might be viewed as a cost as part of the delivery network. They want to have their own profitability, and the need to keep experienced and good quality contractors in a competitive environment is also, it's hugely important. But I feel like it's not really often been part of the conversation about route optimization. But just building on what you've just said there, you've sort of mentioned this idea of rebalancing territories or optimizing territory. What does that mean, and how does that I mean, how can you include that as part of route optimization?
I think that just to come back to what you said, I think that route optimization and load balancing the territories are are totally linked, because route optimization, the goal of route optimization is to reduce the cost, reduce the cost of the last mile, and so for doing that, you need to be able, I would say, to compute the right cost of this last mile. And the problem today is that if you ask a parcel delivery player how much cost the last mile, they will say that they struggle to define it, because if you negotiate with the subcontractors, or you will pay them very little, and so you have a very high margin, but at the end of the day they will go bankrupt, or you pay them too much and it will impact your margin. So you need to find the right, I would say, mix between their profitability and your margin. And this is where it's a struggle, because anticipating, providing route optimization. So this is why they need to make them profitable, productive, but at the same time they need them to think about their margin. So it's a complex mix in terms of how they want to structure their organization. When they implement route optimization, one of the problems is the quality of the data. We know it's always a struggle, and when you try to implement some route optimization solution, you need to have a perfect data quality. Otherwise, you won't be able to define the perimeter and to sequence the stops. So this is one of the major, I would say, struggle when they implement some route optimization. This is why you need, and the decisions are made long in advance when they optimize an organization. When you need to sort the packages, you need to print the label, and the number of this label have been decided like a few weeks, few months earlier. So this is why you need to implementing route optimization, I think, is the last step, when you have optimized your structure. And this is why at Kardinal we always say that we need to unlock the value upstream, because all the decisions that were made upstream have an impact on the decision below. For example, when you implement a depot, you sectorize your territory, you negotiate with your subcontractors, the picking, and so on, to the route optimization, and the route optimization is the last step to optimize.
You just said unlocking value. So can you just go into that a little bit more? Because again, this is a phrase that we don't often consider when we talk about some of these solutions. So what do you mean by unlocking value?
Today, parcel delivery players are trying to find the best match between agility and resilience. And building an agile company, I will give just an example. You can optimize your territory by adjusting the sectorization every day. But doing that will provide the best agility you can possibly have. But the problem is that when you negotiate with some contractors, you need to provide them visibility. You need to anticipate the volumes. You need to take decision long in advance. And so when you negotiate a certain number of resources for certain days, you will have emergency drivers, and you want to reduce the number of emergency drivers to load balance this volatility. And I think that unlocking the value is to say that every stage of this process will be fully optimized. So we let to the stage below the full capacity to be, to express itself, if I can say it like that. So this is why when we're talking about unlocking the value, I think that the strategic decision, we always tend to think that, we optimize the last mile because it represents 53%. But today it represents 53% of the total cost of the delivery, because all those stages before weren't optimized. And this is our vision at Kardinal.
Now, another thing that you mentioned just earlier was about poor data being a significant hurdle. Can a lack of data or poor quality data be overcome?
I think that it can be overcome at the strategic and tactical level. You organize your territory, because when you organize your territory, you're projecting your activity. And so the quality of data is not, I would say, the most important thing, because when you project your activity, you will make some assumptions. And so if you have 85% of your data, which is great, it's enough. And this is what we have seen for our customers. 85% of their data is a good quality, 10% are not so good, and 5% is unusable. And we can build a very good organization, even with this level of data quality. But when you're going to the operational parts, you need to have a perfect data set. This is very important. And building, increasing this quality by using some machine learning algorithms, or improving this data by letting the drivers correct this information on the fly, is a very good thing to do.
So can you just share a little bit about Kardinal's approach overall then when it comes to route optimization and territory optimization and all this? How does your company approach this?
So we have two parts. We have the tactical and strategic and tactical part for the territory optimization. What we have developed, and so for this part, the goal is to define the right sectorization, the right territory for each driver or for each subcontractor, in order to define the right organization, the actual organization or the future organization. I will give two use cases. The first is to negotiate with a subcontractor. We have one of our customers today. All their depot managers have the Kardinal product, and they negotiate with their subcontractors by sharing all their insights and defining the territories by before they were designing on a map on the wall. They had a map on the wall and they had to with a pen they had to design the territories. Today they are doing it on their computers, and they can organize a territory, and this is one of the use cases. The second is to the fleet conversion. When they need to operate, an electric fleet or, for example, a cargo bikes, they always struggle. Operationals they always struggle to define what the real mix, the good mix between thermic vehicles and electric vehicles, and to project this activity. And this is what the solution will provide. For this strategic and tactical part, it's always coming from the C-level. We always see that between the vision of the CEO. Trying with the net zero objectives, saying that they want to have to be to not emitting any CO2 emissions, and the operationals saying that they struggle to operate an electric fleet. There is always a gap, and we are trying to fill this gap with our solution. This is the first part, I would say, the strategic and tactical part, and we have the operational part with the route optimization. And for this part, the difference is what we have developed is this always-on approach. Earlier, I was saying that we have, when you optimize a fleet, you have to define a perimeter, send the data, optimize between. It takes 10, 15 minutes and receive the results. At Kardinal, we from the first stop coming into the system to the last delivery to be operated, we optimize continuously. And so we, when you have a correction for the data, you can make it on the fly. You need to correct the time slot. You need to correct the location of the delivery. Everything can be done in real time. And this is basically what we are doing, for the tactical, strategic, and the operational part.
Recently, Kardinal announced a new partnership with Escher as well. So, can you just share a little bit about what that's all about?
Yeah, of course. When we discussed with Escher, it was a no-brainer that our two companies were we had a lot of synergies. They have a strong knowledge of the parcel industry. We have amazing technology, and so this is why it was totally relevant that we combine their knowledge with our technology to build a unique offer for this market. And this is basically why we started this relationship.
What kind of products and services then are going to be part of this relationship with Escher? So
Escher will be able to leverage our APIs, our solution into their product, so they can resell the Kardinal solution and embed the technological solution in their offer, in their track and trace offer.
We've just got a couple of minutes left, and I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. I feel like this is a really important question for the postal sector and the delivery sector at large, which is we've got the strategic imperative, as you mentioned before, of reducing emissions or going to net zero or complying with zero emission zones in a lot of European cities. And you've got the operational realities, shall we say. The post might have a fleet of diesel vehicles that have only been in for 2 years, or they might be unaware or uncertain of what kind of range they've got with their electric vehicles, might be uncertain about the load that they can pile into the various modes of transport they're using, whether it's someone on foot, a cargo bike, a power-assisted trike, or an electric trike, and so on and so forth. So you were mentioning before about the ability to balance. What was it? Optimize, they're taking into consideration all these different modes. How is that something that's sort of going to be just immediate or long term? What's your approach to this?
We have for the sustainability, I think it's a very important topic. In the last 2 years, we always say that when the elevator goes up, everybody is talking about sustainability, but now it's going down. The profitability is a huge struggle for those players. They need to be efficient and to think about the next few years. And when we are talking about sustainability, it's a very important topic for a few reasons. First, at Kardinal we have 3 stages. First is to define what they are currently doing. So they have their current fleet. They have a certain level of CO2 emissions. Today, it's very complicated for them to define what this level of CO2 emissions, because the last mile, it's very complicated to optimize, very complicated to define. So they follow their fleet, and it's through their fleet that they can follow the CO2 emission. So it's the first part. The second part is when they will need to, with the current fleet, how they need to optimize their territory, how they need to leverage the best vehicles for the best territories. You won't send, for example, an electric vehicle for rural deliveries. Otherwise, it won't be relevant. You want to send them for urban deliveries, so you can leverage the most value of this type of vehicles, and even more for cargo bikes. And after, you have this third stage, I would say, the prospective fleet. When you need to anticipate what type of fleet you need to use, you have your current fleet, but you need to anticipate few months, few years in advance what type of fleet you will be able to use. And so with your current data, we are integrating some forecast about what will be the deliveries in the next few months, few years, and we say the best mix of the fleet is this mix, but also integrating a trade-off between CO2 emissions and, I would say, the profitability. Because I never seen a CFO saying I'm against sustainability. What they are against is the lack of visibility. And so what we are providing in those type of organization is a unique view between sustainability, profitability of the organization, possibility to operate a fleet. And so when you need to be aligned, you need to speak about with the same language. And this is exactly what we are doing.
Now, if people want to find out more about Kardinal, about route optimization and the services that you have to offer, where should they go?
They should go on our website first, cardinal.ai with a K. And also we have a blog on our website, or even on LinkedIn. We post a lot of content.
Cardinal.ai, Cardinal with a K. I'll also put a link on thepostalhub.com. So if you are listening to this via the website, or wherever you're listening to this, go to the website and you'll see a link there on the episode page. You'll be able to click through to Kardinal's website and find out more about what they do. Jonathan Bouaziz, CEO and co-founder at Kardinal, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thank you, Ian.
Next week on the Postal Hub podcast, we've got Daniel Rueda from OpenPricer. He's going to talk about parcel pricing and sustainability. Who else is coming up soon? I've got Anne Snitko from Omnic, who's going to talk about parcel lockers. The USPS Inspector General Tammy Whitcomb-Hull will join me. That's an interesting one. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Who else? Paul Boyce from University of Groningen. I haven't quite pronounced Groningen correctly, but everybody will forgive me. Great episodes, great discussions, excellent experts, and so that you don't miss an episode, make sure that you do a couple of things. Subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., etc. Subscribe to the email newsletter. Go to thepostalhub.com and you'll get an email from me every time there's a new episode. While you're over there at thepostalhub.com, sign up for the Daily Delivery Digest, sign up for Decarbonising Delivery, which covers my other projects that you probably like. If you're listening to this, if you're listening to the end of this episode, you're probably into delivery stuff. So go on, subscribe, do yourself a favor. I mentioned that the other week and nobody knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, what else can I tell you? Follow me on LinkedIn for lots of LinkedIn goodness. If you want to email me, my email address is ian@thepostalhub.com. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.